challenges that our customers are facing in the marketplace as it relates to managing the data in their enterprise, as a lead-in to giving you an overview of what we do and what enterprise data management software is all about. And then we'll get into the meat of the presentation, which is our on-demand option, our managed service option. I'll do a case study of how that would work from a financial standpoint so you can see the benefits of this approach. And that'll wrap it up, and hopefully we'll have time for some Q&A. So without further ado, let me jump right in. Has been around for years. We were founded in 2002. We launched our product in 2005, SOLIX EDMS, and that stands for SOLIX Enterprise Data Management Suite. Our vision really is simple, and that is to enable our customers to optimize the investment they've made in their application infrastructure. We do that by helping them improve the performance of their enterprise applications, lowering their computing costs that are required to manage those applications, and improve the process for managing the total data footprint of the application and their test and development process. So that's what we do. Now let's play a little what if game. So what if moving, and I assume everybody here had an experience of moving before from one house to another, or maybe in your business moving from one office to another. What if moving was like buying enterprise data meat? You'd have to go buy a truck. You'd have to get a commercial driver's license to drive the truck. You'd have to take time off from your real job to do the move. You'd have to do a lot of really hard work. And then to top it all off, you'd have to pay to maintain that truck year after year. So the reason I use the moving analogy is that fundamentally what we do in the enterprise data management space is help you move data from one place to another to help optimize your infrastructure. So the traditional approach in our marketplace is you have to buy a perpetual software license, which is like buying that truck. You have to become proficient in the use of the software, which is like getting that commercial driver's license. You have to dedicate resources to implement the software, which is like taking time off from your real job. You have to implement the software, which is like doing lots of really hard work in that mood. And then you have to pay annual support fees for the software, which is like paying to maintain that truck year after year. So obviously there are a lot of challenges to this approach. The first of them is, in this economy, getting approvals to go make a new capital purchase is more difficult than ever. You have to really prove that you have a positive ROI, and even if you do that, your capital project request is going to get weighed amongst all the other requests for capital in the company. And even if you have a positive ROI, it may not be at the top of the list of the things that the company wants to spend money on, given the tight state of money in our economy. It's just a real difficult thing to do. Next is conflicting priorities. So we recognize in the EDMS space that our product and what we do is different than, say, your enterprise application that you run your business on. We're there to help optimize that investment you've made, but we're not the application goes along with conflicting priorities. It's key resources are in demand across a lot of different projects, and they may not be available to be allocated to your EDMS project when you need them. And then lastly, there are specialized skills that are required in this space, and you may or may not have time to develop those skills on your own. So those are some of the challenges that our customers face in implementing enterprise data management software. So now, what if buying production. You can optimize the infrastructure for transaction processing for the reference tier. You can put it on lower cost tier 2 servers and storage and optimize it for queries and reporting and lower cost. And then for the archive platform, we want to optimize for the lowest cost. And that can be as simple as a file system and content management platform and a more sophisticated archives platform, or something as simple as tape. Okay, so that's the way we recommend setting up the application architecture, and that leads me into the SOLIX Enterprise Data Management Suite, which consists of data. Well, actually, I'll just go through it on the next slide. It consists of 4 primary functions. The first, archiving. That is the process of moving the inactive data out of your production system, putting it into a different tier of your architecture. Subsetting and masking is the process of creating secure, right-sized copies of your application for use by your test and development teams. Cloning is the process for automating the creation of copies of your production application. And then application retirement is the last of the solutions, and that is for allowing you to retire older legacy applications while still keeping the data. So you want to retire the application but retain the data. So just briefly, I've mentioned these, and then we'll get into the on-demand. So what with archiving is similar to what I showed on the previous slide. We move data from production. We move the semi-active data into a reference database. We move the inactive data into an archive platform. The other thing that we do that is important is allow access to the data through the native application. It's a process we call simultaneous access. So from a user point of view, it looks and feels like they're accessing that archive data the same as if it had never been moved. And we do that by creating alternate roles or responsibilities depending on the security setup of the application. And when they choose one of the alternate roles or responsibilities, then they see the archive data as opposed to the production data. We support a number of applications, Oracle E-Business Suite, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, Siebel, Bond, FlexCube, and we also support custom applications. We support a number of databases, Oracle, MySQL, DB2, SQL Server, Informix, Sybase, and then we support a number of archive platforms as well. And that's archiving. Some archiving really are improving your application performance, improving your operations, reducing your costs, and maintaining regulatory compliance. So the solution is test data management, secure subsetting. So we do 3 things. So we help automate the cloning process. We create smaller subsets that are right-sized to the business needs, and then we allow those subsets to be secured with masking so that you can still do the testing you need to do, but know that the data is secured so that any confidential information is not going to get into the wrong hands. On application retirement, we use the same technology, upgrade the data out of the legacy applications and into either a database archive or a file archive. And then once we have the data migrated, then we set up access to that data and provide context for that data through our SOLIX View Builder and our SOLIX Archive Portal. And any of you that want more detailed information on the product, we'll be happy to set up additional calls or WebEx sessions where we can drill into that functionality. I just wanted to give you kind of an overview of what we do so that when we're talking about on-demand and managed services, that you have a better idea of the context in which those services are offered. So now let's get to the fun part, which is SOLIX On-Demand. buying this service from us, we would come in and manage your archiving process. We would archive periodically based upon the service level agreement, keep your database in peak condition while meeting the information needs and data retention policies of your organization. So rather than you guys doing that, we would come in and do it for you, and you can focus on other tasks. So the test data management service works the same way. So we would come in periodically and maintain and create the secure subsets and clones, which would allow you to lower the cost to your test and development process. And then the application retirement service is similar in that we would come in and migrate the data from your legacy system into an archive platform and allow you to retire those legacy applications. The managed services contracts are based upon a service level agreement like any other managed service, and they typically have a term of 2 to 3 years. You charge a monthly service fee. The monthly service fee, so you know exactly what your monthly costs are going to be, and we bill that quarterly. And the monthly service fee includes the cost for the initial installation and implementation, as well as the ongoing on-demand fees. So it's basically a single number. That's your total cost. You know exactly every month what that's going to be, and that allows you to control that cost and not have any surprises. So these are the hosting options. So most of our customers prefer to install the Solid CDMS in their own data center, and that's perfectly fine. We're okay with that. But we also, if you don't want to do that, and you don't want to incur the cost of the server to put the software on, you can use a hosted option and either use the version of the software or the copy of the software we have in our data center, or we can put it in your partner's data center. And it works the same way. It just, you need a secure internet connection, obviously, to connect the Solid CDMS to your application infrastructure, and then you're good to go. Now let me do a quick case study to give you a sense of what this would look like from a financial standpoint. And I'm not going to reveal actual prices. I'm going to do ratios. But for anyone that would like to get the actual prices on the software or any of the services, let us know, and we can contact you and get your specific information so that we can give you what those numbers would look like for your organization. But this case study is for a company that's using the Oracle E-Business Suite, and they have 5 modules that they want to include in the scope: accounts receivable, order entry, inventory, AP, and GL. Now, most organizations that use Oracle E-Business Suite have more than 5 modules, but typically the growth in data in their application is concentrated in just a few modules. And it may not be these modules for you, it may be different ones, but for this case study, these are the ones that have the data concentration, so it makes sense to include them in scope. So for archiving, all 5 modules would be included, so we would archive the transactional data for all 5 of these based upon their data retention policy. Their database size is 2 terabytes, and they expect to be able to archive about 30% of that initially based upon the data retention policy that they have chosen. And they expect their database to grow about 20% a year. And they want to update the archive once a quarter. So meaning, we'll do it initially, and then we'll come back every 3 months and move any additional data that meets the retention policy into the archive. For subsetting, they want to create 3 unique subsets and refresh them quarterly. So that's the scope. Now, what I've done here is to show you a comparison of the options alternative to a perpetual license option. So think of the perpetual license option as 100%. So in year one, the managed service option is 32% of the perpetual license option. Or another way of saying that is it's 68% less than the perpetual license option. The on-demand option is about the same. It's 33% of the perpetual license option, so a savings of 67%. Over 3 years, the on-demand option is still less expensive than the perpetual license option. It's 55%, so a savings of 45%. And the managed service option is 79% over 3 years, which would be a savings of 21%. So as you can see, you can really reduce that upfront cost and even save money over the long haul. One thing on the managed services that are not being factored in here are the cost avoidance for your own staff. And that can be a significant cost. It may not be a cost reduction because you're not necessarily going to be having less resources in your organization. It just allows you to repurpose those resources to doing other core tasks and avoiding these costs. So it can make the cost comparison for the managed service option look even more attractive when you factor in those cost avoidances for your own staff. So to summarize and kind of wrap up here, what you want to consider Solix On-Demand. Well, first, it allows you to solve that data management problem that we talked about earlier. It allows you to improve your application performance, reduce your infrastructure costs, make your test and development process more efficient, retire those legacy applications, and free up the infrastructure and capital that's required to support those old systems. It's a low-risk way to get started, much less upfront money. You don't have to go get that big capital appropriation to do this. You pay only for the amount you use. There's no ongoing support costs, and there's no commitment. On the on-demand option, once you buy those initial usage credits, there's no additional commitment to buy anything beyond that. If you want to use those credits up and stop using the service at that point, that's fine. Obviously, we hope you like it, and we'll come back and buy additional usage credits and keep using it over time. But there's no obligation to do so. Also, we hope that you're going to like the service well enough that you want to use the application across your enterprise to support all your different applications. And at that point, you may want to consider switching to a perpetual license. And the investment you've made in the on-demand fees can be applied toward the purchase of a perpetual license in the future. Next is the managed service option allows your staff to focus on other core tasks. We know that in this environment, IT organizations are stretched thin. They're being asked to do more and more with less and less resources. It allows you to get the benefits of solving the data management problem without having to take resources off projects and which you just can't afford to do given the staffing situation in most organizations. Next is you can leverage the experience, our experienced EMS professionals to reduce risk. I mean, when you get in that U-Haul truck, if you've never driven a big truck, you're assuming a little bit of risk. Chances are you'll be fine and you'll figure it out. But bringing in somebody that is an experienced professional can reduce your risk and reduce the time to benefit as well. The experienced guys can come in and not have to go through that learning curve and just get the job done much more quickly and efficiently. And lastly, probably most importantly, this option allows you to have a lower cost, which leads to a much faster return on your investment. I wanted to wrap up just by showing you some of our customers. got customers in